can turn the world on with her smile, who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile. Well, it's you, girl, and you should know it. With each glance and every little movement you show it. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can never tell, why don't you take it? You're gonna make it after all. You're gonna make it after all.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Are you having a great summit? Okay, so how many of you are Mary Tyler Moore fans? Me too. How many of you, like me, had a crush on Mary Richards? You know, the Mary Tyler Moore Show was actually quite radical in the 70s when it aired. It was one of the first times a single career woman was portrayed on television. Mary lived in a very cute apartment right here in Minneapolis. And one of the things I remembered most was that she never had much luck with men, but she and her best friend Rhoda were very close. I do remember that. Well, thank you all so much for being here to celebrate the 15th annual Out and Equal Workplace Summit. A very special thank you to our friends and partners at the Walt Disney Company for sponsoring today's plenary power lunch. And thank you to all of our generous sponsors and our individual contributors. We couldn't do this important work without you. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was driving in my car and was listening to the radio, and the announcer came on. It was kind of a contest, and he said, you know, if you could go back in time, say 50 years, and had the opportunity to talk to people, what would you tell them will be the biggest changes that will happen by the year 2013? A woman called in and she said, well, I would tell people from 50 years ago that in the year 2013, we all carry around these little devices in our pockets every day. And with these devices, we can access the wisdom of the ages. We can ask them any question known to humankind, and they will have an answer for us. And we use these miraculous devices to look at pictures of very cute kittens. Well, every year when we come together, we have a chance to look back at how far we've come and to look forward. We come together to celebrate our momentum and to inspire one another for the journey ahead. This year, we have so much to celebrate. Many of the things that have happened in 2013 would be unimaginable 50 years ago. Nearly as remarkable as this little device we carry around in our pockets is the fact that same-sex couples can be married in 14 states and 16 countries around the world. In 2013, Tammy Baldwin became the first out lesbian in the United States Senate. And the Supreme Court handed down not one, but 2 decisions affirming our right to marry. This year, we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. 50 years after he helped organize the March on Washington, Bayard Rustin, the gay civil rights activist, was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom by the first African-American president. The same courageous president who has been the first American president in history to stand up for LGBT equality and our right to marry. The arc of progress continues to bend toward justice, and it's because of the courage and commitment of people around the globe and around this room who are standing up for equality and freedom. So we celebrate our successes and we inspire each other for the journey ahead. We live in an interesting time in history when we can be married in 14 states, but we can still be fired in 29 states simply for being lesbian and gay, bisexual, and transgender. That's why we are still in dire need of a fully inclusive Employment Non-Discrimination Act. Change comes in many ways, and each of you in this room has a story of taking action and making a difference. Charlene Grabowski works at GE. Charlene and her colleague Melanie were inspired when they came to the Out and Equal Executive Forum in April. They heard stories from so many leaders who had made huge progress in creating equal workplaces. So after the Supreme Court decisions this past summer, Charlene and Melanie created a presentation called The Road to Equality and held workshops for employees and executives across the company. They brought together staff attorneys. They worked with their HR team to completely revise GE's benefit program. And because Charlene and Melanie took a stand for equality, GE now offers full benefits to all married couples. On the eve of the benefit rollout, Charlene finally proposed to her partner of 10 years, and they were among the very first same-sex couples covered by the new policy. So Charlene and Melanie are standing up for equality and are creating lasting change. My good friend George Kalogridis knows about standing up for equality and about the power of engaging allies to make a difference. George started his career at Disney as a busboy, and he has gone on to bigger and better things, is now the president of the Walt Disney World Resort. George has an incredibly powerful story, which you can read all about in our new book, Out and Equal at Work, From Closet to Corner Office. And I'd like to just share a part of his story with all of you. So George writes this. He said, "The first time it came to light that everyone at work was aware that I'm gay occurred during the late 90s. I was working at Walt Disney World at the time and was in a meeting with the president of our division and a lot of senior executives. In the middle of the meeting, the president pulled me aside to tell me that the company was very concerned for my personal safety. Organizers were gearing up for the Gay Days, and several right-wing groups were planning to protest with roadblocks. Disney security became aware of a message posted on a website belonging to an extreme right Christian group advertising the fact that I was gay and telling people how to get into my office." He said, "The overwhelming support I received from Disney touched me. In response to this threat, the president said, 'George, first of all, you need to know that the company will not tolerate this kind of activity happening to any cast member. We are going to support you 100%. Because police officers, because police officers had to be stationed outside of my office for a while, I had to have a conversation with my colleagues explaining the situation. There, of course, were no surprises, but people were infuriated that someone would put a coworker in danger. The local sheriff also stated that there would be a zero-tolerance policy for any violence. His response demonstrated an important evolution in the local community. At first, people had been somewhat resistant to the idea of gay days, but by the late 1990s, the entire Orlando area had realized that 250,000 people were attending the event and spending lots of money over the course of 3 or 4 days. So the business case far outweighed any potential homophobia. By 2011, when we aired our Disney It Gets Better video, I received hundreds of emails from employees from throughout the Walt Disney Company expressing that they now had the courage to be out at work. It makes me so proud that Disney is leading the way. Thank you, Disney. George is committed to workplace equality and is committed to sharing the good news with a wider and wider circle. George has worked tirelessly along with his colleagues to invite Disney's corporate partners to come and join us here today at the summit. George is standing up for equality and is creating lasting change. We live in an interesting time when we can be married in 14 states and we can still be fired in 29. Even more disturbing is the global reality that we can be married in 16 countries and we can still be thrown in prison and arrested in 76 countries around the world, simply for being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. There are unique places like Spain where we can be married, but very few people are out at work. I was recently in Italy, and a colleague of mine told me about a meeting that he had had with senior executives of a large Italian company. He said he wanted to talk to them about their LGBT employees, and the response he got was, "Don't worry, we don't have those kind of people here." This is why the work of Out and Equal is so important. We're now planning Out and Equal's first ambassador tour to Italy next spring to meet with corporate leaders and policymakers in Italy to have open dialogues about the issues facing the LGBT community. It promises to be a very powerful conversation, perhaps followed by a day or two of wine tasting. A couple of months ago, Scott Beth from Intuit had several conversations with his colleagues in Bangalore, India. He learned from these conversations that LGBT issues were not being discussed at all. Scott wanted to support his closeted LGBT colleagues in India, and at the same time, he wanted to make sure that he was respectful of a culture that is not his own. After many conversations, Scott brought up the topic with me and a couple members of Out and Equal's Global Advisory Committee. As a result, we're now planning the first Out and Equal Roundtable in Bangalore in January on the Intuit campus, along with employees from Dell, IBM, Citi, and Google. The roundtable in Bangalore will give employees the opportunity to discuss LGBT issues and the importance of our allies. It will make visible the circle of support for every lesbian and gay, bisexual, and transgender person working in India. And the message of equality and tolerance will expand beyond that to their families and friends. Scott is standing up for equality and is creating lasting change. So many of you are making a difference and are changing the world where you work. And I think that's why the work of Out and Equal is so important. So we have a place to come year after year to share these powerful stories of transformation. We live in a world where we can be married in 16 countries, and we can still be imprisoned for being LGBT in 76 countries around the globe. 76 countries. Let's not forget them. I know many of you have colleagues and friends in these countries. These are people like you and me who get up every morning and go to work. They have families, they have hopes and dreams like everyone in this room. They share the hope of living a life where they can be themselves, where they can celebrate their lives and their loves without living in fear. So as we come together and celebrate our equality and freedom this week, let's remember all the work we still have to do in the United States. And let's remember our brothers and sisters in Yemen, in Afghanistan, in Indonesia, in Trinidad, and in Uganda. Everyone in this room has an opportunity to make a difference. This is a powerful group of people. So how can we leverage this power together to make a difference? Well, Out and Equal has drafted a pledge that we'd love every person in the room to sign. It's a simple statement. It just says, we support the right of all lesbian and gay, bisexual, and transgender people to live and work openly. And we call upon all employers around the world to do the same. We all know that our coming out stories have made a difference, and now it's time for us to take the next step as individuals and make a personal pledge to stop discrimination around the world. Together, we are making a difference. Together, we can change the world. With this simple pledge, we're letting our brothers and sisters all over the world know that they are not alone, that they are not forgotten. 50 years from now, when people look back and let us know what has changed, they will say that every country around the globe celebrates their LGBT citizens, and every company celebrates their LGBT employees. And they will say that the Out and Equal personal pledge in 2013 was one of the key catalysts to making that happen. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase. We have taken the first step, and the tides are beginning to change towards full equality for lesbian and gay, bisexual, and transgender people. I am prouder than ever of our community, and I'm so grateful to our allies who are supporting us one step at a time toward full equality. This is an historic moment. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you do every single day, making a difference and changing the world, one cubicle and one workplace and one country at a time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.